BCS bowl games are all set. Stanford Cardinal headed to the Sugar Bowl to face Oklahoma State. Cal Bears are headed to the Holiday Bowl. They'll be taking on Texas. But it's LSU and Alabama in a rematch for the national championship. And, of course, some people love that. A lot of people don't like the way things shaked out. And that always brings back the old debate about a playoff system and how the BCS system works. Sports host Marty Lenz back with us once again tonight to talk a little sports. Thanks for coming by.
Very glad to be here.
I'll start with LSU and Alabama. Do you like that rematch thing? This is the big question.
I don't. I mean, LSU obviously deserves to be there. I have some questions about Alabama. I mean, they didn't even get out of their own conference. Didn't have to play in a conference championship game, but they get in there. But that just, to me, validates the inequities of what the BCS is all about. If they had a playoff, you could settle it. But you could make some arguments for why Oklahoma State's not there, Big 12 champ.
Right.
But then it gets into that whole thing, well, who has the better-looking loss? And, you know, losing to Iowa State, is that worse than losing to LSU?
Well, and I guess that's the big debate. Is, see, then you get into all these intangibles. Instead of a playoff system where either you win or you lose. You look at college basketball. If you lose in the big dance, you're just out. Nobody looks at, well, this win was more pretty than this loss or whatever. It's just either you win or you lose, which is what sports is all about.
Right, and it's just statistics and numbers is what it becomes. I mean, and if you can have a college playoff at every other level of college football, the FCS level, you know, which is Division I AA, what they used to call it, NAIA level, Division II, why can't you have it for the big boys? It just doesn't make sense. There's no logical defense of the BCS, none whatsoever. Right.
Let's talk a little bit about Stanford. You mentioned Oklahoma State. I actually think that could be a pretty dang good game in and of itself. Although Oklahoma State will want to play LSU for the national championship, but that's a good game.
I think it is too. In fact, one of the things they talk about, if they ever do a playoff, maybe an and one. Well, this would be the and one. The winner of Alabama LSU, you could say, would play the winner of Oklahoma State Stanford if they ever did an and one. Right. That's the thing. Looking at this game, I mean, Andrew Luck, Stanford. I mean, Oklahoma State can score, but they can't stop anybody. 107th ranked defense. So the concern is, will they have the ability to stop someone like Andrew Luck and company? I'm not so sure. I mean, I like Stanford in that game, but Oklahoma State will be a fun team to watch.
Well, and a lot of people in Stanford thought, now earlier in the season, they do have the loss to Oregon, but earlier in the season, they went down in the polls after winning all of their games this season, and they're right now, I think, number 4. And they say, you know, if you hadn't had that week, we might have been 2 or 3. We might have been in that national championship picture, but they, you know, have an argument for why they're not in.
Well, they do, but again, if you're going to look at losses, them losing to Oregon, you know, Pac-10 champ, they're ranked in the top 10. What are they, like 5 or 6 in the BCS, something like that? How do you not make that argument, saying, well, Stanford's a very viable candidate too? But again, based on my argument, they didn't win their conference, so you know that's.
Let's talk about Andrew Luck. He picked up another award today, Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. So that's one of the postseason honors coming out. Everybody will be watching to see what happens. Why do we have to keep showing highlights and then beating up my Buffaloes? Anyway,
I like
that being said, it's this Saturday, the Heisman. Is he going? Do you think he can win this year? There's some good candidates out there.
I don't see how he can't. I mean, there are some good candidates. Trent Richardson, the running back of Alabama.
Right.
You know, quarterback-wise, Case Keenum, a great kid out of Houston, though they question the competition. And then the Robert Griffith kid, the kid from Baylor.
Right.
But how do you not look at a kid like Andrew Luck? I mean, this is a repeat and better than we did last year. And his team's a winning team. They're in a big BCS bowl. I'd have to say he's got to be the odds-on favorite.
Do you think it's a good thing that the awards come out this Saturday as opposed to after the LSU-Alabama game? And I say that because you mentioned the running back for Alabama. And if they look at what makes a Heisman Trophy winner, so he's playing in a top-rated team, and let's suppose that Alabama were to win that game, and you could make the argument that he helped his team to a national championship. He might have an argument there as opposed to Andrew, he has great stats.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Right. It could be, but it's kind of like, if you want to mix sports, it's kind of like baseball, where they always hand out the awards a lot of times before the playoffs because they base it on the regular season, because not every team, if you will, qualifies. So I don't have necessarily a problem with them awarding it prior to the bowl game. But to me, that still doesn't disqualify Andrew Luck. As far as I'm concerned, he could have the worst game of his life in the bowl game. Don't want him to. And I still think he'd be the guy that has to win the Heisman.
Right. I don't want to get in trouble with our Cal folks. Cal, Texas, who do you see winning that?
You know what? This is a very evenly matched game. I'd have to say, from a Texas perspective, a disappointing season. Not to say that Cal isn't disappointed, but the standards are a little different. I think Cal wants to end their season on the right note. I think Coach Tedford, you know, he's on a bit of a hot seat. I only think he wants to say, I want to win this bowl game and get into the next season, get to play in the new stadium with all the accoutrements that Cal has been lacking. So I think Cal's a very motivated team, probably more motivated than Texas. So I do like Cal in this.
All right, very good. Marty, thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. We'll see how the season goes on, the rest of the ways, all the fun stuff.
It is, absolutely. Thank you.
All right.